Well, good morning. Steve Gard here from Network in Action. I'm pleased to be joined today by Howard Page. Howard and I are members of the same Network in Action group here in Atlanta. And Howard is with TeamLogic IT. I'm calling upon Howard today to talk a bit about his business and the impact that the coronavirus has had to his business and how it might help all of us understand what we can do from an IT perspective as well as from our own businesses. So Howard, welcome.
Thanks for having me, and it's always good to talk about keeping businesses running because even before COVID-19, the focus of my business has always been around business continuity. So this has just been one big shock to everybody all at the same time. So the scope is enormous.
That is correct. So tell me, how has your business responded to the coronavirus? Well, what actions have you taken?
Well, I guess maybe because our focus was business continuity, we had set up our companies to be able to work in spite of any disruption. So working from home is considered a disruption if you're used to an office. So different companies responded differently. We have a number of law firms, and some of them we'd already set up so that their file systems were in the cloud. The systems that they used were on the web. So really, they were set up so they needed internet connection and a computer. So for them to move to their home offices was fairly straightforward. There are some other clients that we have that have servers, and they need to have remote access to the servers. And we worked with them on a couple of different ways to do that. But all was seamless. I don't think any of our clients were down maybe an hour during the move, things like that. So
That's great. That's great. You know, I work from home for many a year, and probably can offer some tips about what it is to work from home, be it security-wise, be it don't turn on the TV because that's just a trap, that kind of thing. Have you found anything with your clients?
Actually, I was talking to one yesterday who was very excited about working at home and really feels like they get a lot of work done. They were a little nervous that the bosses weren't sure that they were working.
Right.
And in fact, there was another TeamLogic. We are part of a franchise. We have 200 offices around the country. So one of the franchisees had somebody who wanted him to put on the client's workers' computers what are called basically software to monitor what they were doing. So key loggers is a technical term.
Like a time log.
And so, and we actually had one of my clients ask me not too long after that, said, "Hey, Howard, I'm nervous about people working at home. Now, this is a very small law office." I said, "Look, you got to trust these people at some level. I mean, there's only two or three of them. So I tell you what, rather than go right to this key logger thing, why don't we just set up in Outlook some tasks for them to work on? And as long as they're getting the task done, you really don't care what else they're doing." Exactly. And if you find that that's not working, then we can, tighten down the screws and do a little bit more around that. But you really can get carried away with that level of lockdown, if you will. And that's really, it goes to the whole issue of trust and how much do you trust your employees. And so as long as you trust them to get the work done, like you, I've worked out of my house for 20 some years. So, but I was always in sales, and sales, it's pretty cut and dried. At the end of the quarter, you either make your number, you don't make your number.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
But having said that, it's KPI, key performance indices that you can put in any job, anywhere, that measure what people are getting done. And I think we'll see a lot more of that. And the other part about the working from home, there were a number of firms that I worked with that did not allow their staff to work at home. They had to work in the office. And that was just the rule. And it's been that way since the firm was created 20, 30 years ago. Well, guess what now? They know these people can work from home. It's not a question of can they or can't they. They know they can, and they know they can be productive, maybe not as productive. So I think, and I've talked with some other folks who agree that there'll be a big sea change coming out of this, of relaxing the work rules so that people don't have to work from home they won't work from home all the time, I should say, but they'll be able to work from home on some regular basis without it being, maybe it'll start with, hey, I want to be able to work from home because my kid's sick, or there's a school holiday, or my mom's sick. But you'll see, I think, those rules of having to come in the office relax, because the bane of everyone's existence who works in an office every day is the traffic here on I-75 and I-85.
I think on our next call, Howard, we're going to have a call just about working from home, because all the benefits, if you start thinking about it, are incredible. And you just mentioned one, especially here in Atlanta, traffic. Maybe cut down on the traffic. And then for another aspect is pollution. And we could go on and on and on. So we've got to get back to the subject matter here a little bit quicker.
Really?
Let's,
okay.
Yeah. Let's talk
Ask
about
me
what
another
tips.
Question. Ask me another question. Get me on track.
Let's talk about what tips as an expert you might give the people in the audience about how to work today in this environment.
Well, the most important thing is your internet connection. And we have, again, a client who, one of their employees works out in the hinterlands. They have a satellite internet connection. And that's fine for doing email, and it's fine for surfing the web. It is not at all fine for doing video related or audio conferencing. So we're actually working with them to figure out a better way to do things. If it weren't COVID-19, we'd tell them to go to a coffee shop where they have a high-speed internet that's a little more dependable. The other thing that we're trying, though, is looking at the cell phones, because cell phones have been optimized for voice and video. That's hundreds of millions of dollars that the carriers have put in there. So he said his phone, AT&T, is not so great. So we're actually having him check into some of the other services, because believe it or not, even in this modern day and age, you'll find certain areas of the country have better coverage by one cell carrier than the other. So, but that's really the number one thing, is having an internet connection. But number two is understanding that just having a fast internet doesn't mean that you'll still have a great meeting combination. And I encourage all of our folks that are doing audio and video conferencing to make sure they have the ability to have a dial in, so people can use their cell phones or their house phone, whatever they have, for the audio. Because the reality, when you're doing team meetings, most of the time you're doing screen sharing. You're looking at somebody's PowerPoint, and you can get away with having less video, but you can't get away from having audio. You have to be able to talk to each other. So that would be have a way of doing phone. So in the case of this Zoom meeting that you and I are doing, we could also use our phones for the audio instead of using the internet. And most other systems do that. I'll make the one disclaimer, if I will, that Teams from Microsoft, which is the old Skype for business, it's a little confusing, even to us that are in the business, exactly how it works. But they do have dial-in capabilities. You can do conference calling. So I encourage that to be your backup plan in case the internet gets tied up in and it's not the speed, it's actually more the latency and how the packets get jumbled up between where you are talking to where, Steve, you are listening. And if they get out of whack, it's hard to understand what somebody's saying.
Exactly. And what about that delay that always seems to happen too? That just drives you crazy, right? So people talk over each other and you don't realize it.
Yeah, like the old CB radio days where it's almost like it's a half duplex conversation. You have to go 10-4 over, and then the other person can talk back to you.
Breaker 1-9.
That's right. And that's why that came into being, because you couldn't talk at the same time. And so you had to know when the other person had stopped talking. Maybe, no, never mind. I said, maybe that'll change. We'll change the way we do things on team meetings. And the answer is no. People are going to talk over each other.
Right.
Not going to change.
Anxiety gets in the way.
Yeah, some things won't change, but but certainly working at home, the other part of it, and and you've mentioned about turning the TV on, it's trying to avoid the distractions and having, I know when my wife first started working, she was in a small 2-bedroom apartment, and she had a closet, kind of the hall closet when you walked into the apartment, and she put like 2 filing cabinets with a piece of plywood or a door or something on top of it, and that was her desk. But that's where she went in and did her work. And when she was done from work, she closed the door and work was done.
Good advice.
So it's really having, if you need some help breaking that work-life balance, then do it. Because if you can't, it is addictive. And certain people have addictive qualities and they get addicted to work. We call them workaholics instead of alcoholics. But if you don't want to be a workaholic or you're trying to be a recovering workaholic, then having your office be somewhere separate that can be closed off makes a lot of sense.
True, true. So tell me, what things have you identified in your business that affect the way you're doing it today? What changes have you made to work during this crisis period, if you will? And then what do you see coming out of this for the future for TeamLogic IT?
Well, just from the kind of the blocking and tackling part of our business, most of our business is done remotely. We have agents running on all of our clients' computers, so we can remotely log in, even if they're not there, and do work on them. And we monitor them 24/7 to patch them and check to see that they're healthy. So that actually took care of most of it. There indeed used to be a lot of times when we'd have to go on site because things break. And people like having other people talking to them. And that part's gone away for two reasons. One, because of social distancing, but of course, no one's actually in their offices anymore. So I think certainly when this comes to an end and we go back to being in offices, we'll see a big wave of people wanting us to be around and getting their offices back working, because that's, especially for one of my clients who have made a pretty big change moving from working in the office to working from home. And they really haven't been back in the office since they made the change. So it'll be a whole new acclimation there.
True.
Edit that out. Okay, guys.
That's good. Well, Howard, I want to thank you for being here with me today. I'm sure the audience will appreciate your advice. I think we will have another session. We'll talk about working from home and all those tips and tricks about doing that more effectively. And like you said, not being a workaholic at home, because it's easy to fall in that trap. But let the audience know how people can get a hold of you and how you might be able to help them now or in the future.
We are at 770-450-0910 or hpage, P-A-G-E, at TeamLogicIT.com.
Right.
And everyone out there listening to this, I consider you my client. I know you're not maybe a customer, meaning that you're not paying me money to do things, but you're still a client of mine. And feel free to call or send a note. We do things differently at TeamLogic in general. I have access to probably 500 engineers that work in the TeamLogic world. So even though we're a franchise, we actually work with each other. We have a national account program that I can do work with one of the 200 groups, and it looks just like it's one company. So we have that local touch with a national reach. So anytime you have a question about anything technology-wise, and I'll tell you, one of the things that I've seen a big change has been on phone systems. So certainly if you're interested in what you can do to upgrade your phone system and pay less money, I have yet to have somebody upgrade their phone system and pay more money. It's always a better phone system for less money.
There you go.
Give me a call or send me an email. We'll help you out.
All right. What was that email and that phone number again?
770-450-0910 is the phone number. And hpage, P-A-G-E, at TeamLogicIT.com.
Great. Thank you, Howard. And thank you on behalf of Network in Action.
All right. Thank you, Steve.